5 o'clock in the morning. Oh, what a terrible time to have to get up to go to camp. The reason is, of course, that we're camping in Holland, and we've got to be at Dover at 9 o'clock in order to catch the ferry. We chose the Dover ferry because we thought it would be easy to drive the bus onto an old established route like that. That's what we thought. Well, it's ideal weather to be going to camp. Sun shining, the sea calm. Plenty of time on the journey to just walk about and relax. Now we make ourselves tidy, ready to be going ashore. Camp is a return visit. The Dutch scouts we're going to stay with came to stay with us at Hargreaves campsite the year before. We're expecting that they'll be waiting to meet us somewhere as soon as we land. Look, there's Hank walking along behind the wire. His real name is Hank Kessenich, and he's the scoutmaster of the Dutch group that we're going to stay with. He comes aboard the bus to help show us the way to Middelburg, where the Dutch scouts have their headquarters. Arriving there, we found a slap-up meal of salad prepared for us, which we thoroughly enjoyed after our long journey. After the meal, we had time to look around the neighbourhood of the headquarters, and then we went on to the campsite, where some other members of the Paul Kruger group were waiting to meet us. Was at 10 o'clock, or as soon after as we could get everybody there. Colour parties from the two troops took it in turns each morning to hoist the flag. Nice having the boats quite close to the campsite, but this one had sprung a leak and we had to drag it ashore. Not only water, but sand sometimes gets into the wrong places. Being Sea Scouts, we spent quite a lot of time afloat. This was the occasion of one of our first wide games on the water. In instructions had been given that morning as they fall in around the flag.
Wel, dat is dit Moby Dick spel. Ik weet, jullie kennen allemaal wel Moby Dick, die walvis. Die grote witte walvis, die wikkelt dus inderdaad, ja, hij is witte en hij is groot. Dat is wel niet lekker.
The purpose of the game is to see how many harpoons, tennis balls, can be aimed into the Moby Dick, the sail of the scouter's boat. Ideal beach was very close indeed to the campsite. People left all sorts of things around on it. You never knew quite what you'd find next. The market town of Walcheren is called Middelburg. To us it seemed a very sleepy little town, although to some of the Dutch scouts it was evidently quite a busy city. They warned us about the traffic. On arriving there we went to see the Long John and then the model of it in the Walcheren miniature village. All the buildings in this miniature village are exact models of buildings in the island of Walcheren. It was a boiling hot day and we rather regretted not being on the beach. However, there was a cafe in the miniature village, and there we refreshed ourselves and sampled the local beer. The town hall of Middelburg is a famous medieval building destroyed during the war, but afterwards rebuilt in exactly the same style. From the roof one gets quite a marvellous view of the Middelburg market. There is also in Middelburg a craftsman's market, where the coppersmith still plies his trade. Middelburg, national dress is worn most of the time, and not only on Sundays as is usual. camp was on the Veerse Meer, once open water, but now enclosed by a great sea wall. We passed the little town of Veere, from which the sea gets its name. The Veerse Meer is several miles long, providing excellent sailing. Each patrol has a boat of its own. Around the Veerse Meer are various little harbours built specially for yachtsmen. We sail into one of them and make fast. Then we go for a swim. And after swimming, we make tea and have a meal. But while we're having tea, the weather gradually worsens. The wind comes up and makes it very difficult for us to tack out of the narrow entrance of the harbour. The entrance is only about 15 feet wide of deep water. And somebody goes aground. But fortunately, while swimming, we made some friends. And two young ladies from the local town give one of the boats a good shove off. When we went sightseeing during the camp, we found the telephone in the bus most useful for giving directions to the driver as to which way to go. In a foreign country where one is getting traffic coming on the wrong side of the road, the signposts are very good, but sometimes not always quite as clear as one would like. This bridge the Dutch scouts were very proud of. It's several miles long, and when you're in the middle of it, you can't see the shore on either side. We were on our way to look at some sand dunes. These sand dunes were as high as a normal hill. But as soon as we'd climbed over them, as usual, we found our way back to the sea. Then we explored the nearby town of Veerse. This was not the first time our troop had been to Veerse. In 1961 we sailed there on a chartered yacht. Getting the bus through these narrow streets had been something of a problem. We were as interested in the local buildings as the local people were interested in our bus. Several of the houses had crests, and many had these splendid front doors. Dutch gables, of course, you expect to see in Holland. Each morning the Scout Law was read, either in English or in Dutch. As soon as Kit was away after inspection, it was time for patrol activities. This is called washing. And this is called meditation. After which we can change into uniform and be ready to get onto the bus for another journey. The Union flag was in fact a psychedelic plastic bag. Rotterdam. We came here to look around at least one large city in Holland. First we walked along beside the busy waterway. We were astounded at the number of long, narrow barges that came from the inland waters of Europe. Even the first restaurant we visited was in fact afloat. And in this floating restaurant we sampled some of the liquid refreshments that the town had to offer. Then we went on to the Speedo, where a boat had been chartered to take us around the docks. The boat was provided with commentary. It told us where all the ships had come from and what cargo they were carrying. While we are going round the docks and looking at the ships, this seems quite a good time to say something about the organisation of the camp. A fortnight in Holland cost each of these boys £12. A few of them couldn't afford even this figure, and the camp had to be partly subsidised for them. In addition to the £12, they were allowed to bring up to £3 in pocket money. The idea of camping in Holland originated in the international scouting year, the year before. At our contribution, we had invited these scouts over to stay with us. They spent a fortnight at Hargreaves, during which time, among other diversions, we took them up to the Lake District for a short camp among the mountains. Later, it seemed quite a good idea to keep up the association with them, so that when our yacht, which we are building, is finally put afloat in the spring of 1969, We shall have somewhere to go and someone that we know at the other end of the journey. Everywhere from the water, you see the Euromast dominating the scene. This is the Dutch version of our GPO tower, and we determined, as soon as we got ashore, to go and see the view from the top. We were surprised to find how riddled Rotterdam was with waterways. This seemed to be Rotterdam's one and only traffic jam, waiting to go through the tunnel under the water. We found you could get everything in packets in Holland. Far more time sailing than we can record on film, and far more film was in fact taken than we have time to show you tonight. However, it might be worth mentioning our final wide game on the water. This involved searching for and collecting a number of little wooden marker buoys, each of which had a number on the bottom. The crew that got the highest score when the numbers were counted were the winners. Soon the time came for the end of camp, and other tents were put up in place of our own. It was quite a job to get rid of some of the Dutch scouts. They wanted to go on saying goodbye and shaking hands, and everyone was promising to write to everyone else. Some of them even sat on or hung on the outside of the coach as we attempted to drive away.